first from Lumatic, Trey, please introduce yourself.
Yeah, thanks, Dennis. My name is Trey Buck. I'm the Chief Operating Officer of Lumatic Imagery. We offer a AI-powered camera system. It's a platform for teams and groups of any size to get professional headshots within 60 seconds. We're actually set up in the other room over there, and if you want to give it a shot, it's free. Thanks to the Racetrack Business Conference, Tim and Dennis, for the opportunity to be here. And if you haven't had your headshot updated in many, many years, then please come get a free one and check it out.
Can you do two people at once?
So we only do one person with the headshots. We try to find one face. We actually use AI to crop out and smooth, blend, try and clean up the photo a little bit. But it's a real photo of you, right? There are some technologies we'll talk about today that can create a fake photo of you that doesn't actually exist in the world, which is a little bit scary and not always the most accurate. But we take a real photo of you, we clean it up a little bit, and then we deliver it back to you with a whole bunch of other color options very, very quickly.
Dennis, you'll be good looking now.
There ain't enough
There's
not enough artificial intelligence in
Trey,
the world.
can you put hair on Dennis?
I haven't figured out how to regrow my own hair yet, so once we figure that one out, I will let you know.
Okay.
And from the Auto Interest Group, it's Jason.
I'm Jason Kennedy, president of the Auto Interest High Performance Driving School and Trackside Systems. Before fully dedicating myself into motorsports, I worked in the corporate technology world as a global chief information officer and some other roles. So a lot of technology background I'm excited to share and be able to apply into motorsports.
Jason, can you get Dennis hair?
I could try.
Okay.
There seems to be a theme here.
I'm trying.
All right. When it comes to use in the auto racing world, what is artificial intelligence and what isn't, Trey?
Yeah, I think first and foremost, it's a really broad topic. So let's maybe roll back the clock a few decades and start thinking about things like tire pressure monitoring systems, right? Anything that a human would have done manually that we are now using some form of, computer, sensor, or other technology to measure and quantify is effectively a form of artificial intelligence, right? How smart that artificial intelligence is really where we start to blur the line. So there's basically three types. There's weak, which is weak intelligence, which is very much rote tasks, right? So computational, being able to measure, what is the acceleration of a vehicle? Very, very much a specific targeted task with a very intended outcome versus strong artificial intelligence, which is trending towards being creative, having something new come out the other side that wasn't necessarily a part of the expected output. And then further beyond that is super intelligence, which was really getting to be human level cognition, and certainly we're not there yet. And we all don't hope for Terminator, but that's kind of that category that you would put that third thing into. So in racing, we've had artificial intelligence for quite a long time, right? The amount of data and input that goes into race cars today, and even road cars, right? Road vehicles is beyond what any single person can contain in their head, and the idea of being able to assimilate all of that data into actual decision making. The race teams have many engineers on staff that are working with many individual components amongst themselves just to get to an output that they can actually use and make decisions off of. So artificial intelligence has been around in racing for a long time. The definitions change over time. But it's nothing new to the sport, and absolutely won't be going away anytime soon. In fact, a lot of the race teams today have full IT kits they basically bring with them, right? Servers, stacks, and the laptops, all the technology that comes along with it is effectively some form of artificial intelligence because it's adding to the human's ability to gather and interpret and then data and then make decisions off of that.
Oh, and you're not kidding about how technical things have got. When I first started covering NASCAR as a freelance reporter, there were about 20 mechanics and 2 engineers at the track. Now there might be 3 guys to work on the car to test and about 20 engineers and IT pros, and that's just the ones at the track. They're communicating with another fleet of folks out there in the industry. All right, Jason, define artificial intelligence for me within the racing scope.
So again, it is a broad topic that means a lot of different things to a lot of different people. Any automation of tasks could be considered some form of artificial intelligence, whether it's algorithmic automation. I think what's gotten really trendy and buzzwordy is generative AI. So that's more of a platform that you can feed kind of more loosely structured content and things into. You're not giving it a specific task based on a confined data set. You're giving it more of an abstract type of task to perform based on a larger data set. So that's what's really gotten the buzz and had the big breakthroughs recently. In the motorsports world, I think it's really used in a very fragmented fashion. So you've got people who are using things like ChatGPT or some of the publicly available AI platforms to help them maybe write marketing content or do some editing of some sound bites or some video or generate some images, things like that. So I think it's very fragmented is what I would classify it as now, and I think that's kind of normal for the state of where it's at. But there's not any one single clear-cut use case that I'm seeing. It's just kind of bits and pieces all over.
Yeah, maybe to tack onto that a little bit, if anybody's been watching the news about Sports Illustrated recently, they've been in some hot water for a lot of AI, a lot of articles that have been written over the past few years have been attributed to authors that turns out don't actually exist. And so, yeah, you go check that out in the news, and we'll see how that plays out, right? But generative AI is certainly a part of that story, and companies across the board are trying to wrap their hands around it. A lot of sort of that forefront of innovation is coming through consultants right now, right? Where big box companies are hiring consultants to try to figure out how to apply the ideas of generative AI to the things they're already doing today, and for better and for worse, as we're seeing.
Jason, talk a little bit about trackside systems and how your system is helping solve problems for your clients.
Sure. So the whole philosophy behind trackside systems is to bring a unified and complete solution set to motorsports. My corporate background kind of plays into that. So any of you that have heard of a corporate ERP system, it has the end-to-end of everything you need, whether it's getting an order into a system, running it through a manufacturing process, shipping it out to the customer, doing the invoicing, getting paid. So you can think of trackside as the same thing. And the market has lacked a comprehensive system that works both on-site and online to capture digital and in-person sales, electronic waivers, digital tech forms, provide texting, email marketing communications, all the essentials that you need in one solution set. And that's really what we've done is we've driven efficiency through having a single solution set that covers all those bases without having to ask your customers to use 3 different systems or copying data back and forth between different systems and all those types of things. So that's really what Trackside does and what it solves. And then we also can install the infrastructure in place at facilities. We've done that in numerous facilities across the country, installing large-scale Wi-Fi infrastructure so you can power both your operational activities and then also get your fans and spectators connected so that they can be doing social sharing and helping you market and all those different things.
All right, Trey, tell us about Lumatic and how sports groups are putting your PopCam product to work for them.
Yeah, as I mentioned, so Lumatic, we are really a platform, right? We have hardware, we have software, and then we have our cloud-based computing stack that manages really identity at scale for teams and groups of all sizes, right? I was just talking with one of the individuals, and he said that, I haven't had an updated photo of myself for my LinkedIn profile in 6 years, and I've changed my hair, I've changed my style. And the digital marketing group earlier was talking a lot about authenticity, and that's really important for us as well. So when it comes to obviously the participants on the racetracks, you want to make sure that everyone understands, hey, this is who they are and this is what they look like as of today, right? Or at least semi-recently. And that's not the case for a lot of people, but then you can extend that even further into your fans, your spectators, really creating engagement points and activation, because how many people in here actually like their headshot that they have right now? It's 1, 2, right? So it's one of these things that most people don't think about very often. And to be honest, the process is really, really bad. It's been this way of a human taking a photo of you for about 100 years, and so that's a big part of what we're aiming to do, is change that and let you take photos of yourself, that you get a high quality professional result on the other side within about 60 seconds. So being able to create activations for the people that come through your doors and give them something of value that they can take back to their personal lives, really, really important. Plus there's a lot of brand sponsorship opportunities on the backdrops behind them. And then being able to push that content and those images out to all the systems and places, whether it's the profiles that you have of your employees and staff on your website, right? Or potentially even out to social media, where you can ask your users, your customers, to help promote your brand in exchange for an incentive, right? A lot of what we heard in the marketing side is about creating incentives for people, right? Why would I share your brand or your Trax brand on my profiles in my public space that I put out to the world? So the digitization of the world is happening every day, one at a time. And the idea of being able to incentivize your customers to help you push your brand, so that you're not the only one creating content and pushing your message and your placement out in the world, is really important to us.
Dennis, I'm just curious. Raise your hand if you currently use AI in your business. How many of you find it kind of intimidating and out in this world type thing, like where do I even start with it? Some of you may be sleeping or checking your phone. So I find that there's two buckets in that. And I guess my question to you guys is, me personally, as a business owner, where do I start? I started with ChatGPT. It's really cool and scary at the same time. Does anyone find AI scary? And it's kind of weird. All right, and I guess sometimes taking a step back, where I feel like AI is being shoved down my throat, to be honest, because it's like the hot new thing. But the more I kind of warm up to it, I see the value in it, with limits, guardrails. Where do we start? What's a simple place to start as a track owner or a bootstrapping track owner?
So I'll take that. So it's very reminiscent to me of in the corporate world, where there's executives that are after the new shiny. They don't even know exactly how we'll really use this thing yet, but they really, really want it. Has anybody experienced that? Anybody have people that want the new shiny, even if you're not even sure how or if it makes sense yet? That's kind of where AI is at in some capacity. And so there are those publicly available tools like the ChatGPTs of the world and Google's Bard and all of these other things. But when you really take a step back as how do I operationalize this in my business and take a more cohesive approach to it, it all starts with your data. So if you're not collecting good data in your operations today, when you come across the opportunity to really truly apply AI, you're going to be behind. So, and what I mean by that is, do you have data on how many tickets are scanned through your front gate per hour? What your online sales data looks like compared to your point of sale data? Do you collect those data points? I'm not even saying you have to be using them, but are you collecting them? So in all of your daily activities, how much are you doing on paper that's not recorded in any system? Because the big fight in the corporate world right now is commercializing AI to where you could go and say, okay, I use Trackside for my daily operations. It captures all these data points during the course of an event and my operations, now I want to bolt this AI platform onto it and see what insights I can find. Or I can ask it questions and say, tell me, how should I price this type of a ticket for this type of an event, and go compare it to all my past historical ones. If you're not doing something to collect and build that data set today, you're going to be behind when the real true commercial AI opportunities come about. And there's a lot of companies, mostly large companies, using them. They're extremely expensive now, but like everything else we've seen in the history of technology, it's only going to come down, and the winners and losers are going to be made over the next, I think, probably 1 to 3 years. You'll see competing commercial AI platforms that bolt into business systems to really give true value to AI in an unfragmented and cohesive manner.
Yeah, I'll tack onto that a little bit. So in a prior life, I worked at an education company called Blackboard. If you went to school in the 90s or 2000s, you probably heard of this company. So this is a few years back now, but when I was there, they were talking a lot about the data lake and data exhaust, right? So the data lake being the place where you try to put all of the data that's coming from the activities of your business and your customers, and then the data exhaust being all those little points, right? So another good example is, how long are people in your facility, right? What's the average amount of time people are actually engaged with you, both physically and digitally, right? We heard a lot of that in the marketing side as well, and then sort of piping that into the right place, being even if you don't know exactly what the questions you want to be able to ask are, you can't ask any questions without any data backing it.
I'd like to add to that too. In the corporate world, there's this whole concept of data lakes and data warehousing. They have entire dedicated teams of people that, if they use 4, 5, 6 different systems to run their business, that there's a team of people behind the scenes doing nothing but extracting that data from the different systems, normalizing it in some fashion, and then storing it all together. So that's an exceptionally expensive, difficult, and time-consuming effort. But it proves the value of data, and the less systems that you can use and the more consolidation you can do, the better, because then when the time comes to use your data, you don't have to go back and try to collect it all from a bunch of different places.
Yeah, and one more thing there, just to answer as best I can the actual question of what can I do today? The most sort of prevalent example of AI in the business world generally is chatbots, right? So if you got a website, you put a chatbot on it. That's an example of conversational AI, and this is where we'll start getting into different sort of terminology. And again, there's not a lot of separation between some of these things. You might have heard predictive AI, machine learning, natural language processing, conversational AI. These are all sort of subsets of artificial intelligence that may overlap with each other. But chatbots are a really good example of how businesses are managing the customer experience journey from beginning to end, because all the inputs that go into that are, in theory, at least, being passed to some sort of back-end data lake that is being able to help generate better insights about what your customers are asking for. Why are they asking that? If someone's engaging with a bot on your website, there's a reason, and usually the reason is because you haven't done a good enough job presenting to them the information that they're actually looking for, and that's useful to you, right? You should be able to make better decisions off of that.
All right, we're going to open up to questions from the audience after this toss-up question. Anything with computers and computing and analyzing data, it's all the garbage in, garbage out concept. Could you answer how that applies here with artificial intelligence?
Yeah, I'll take that. Oh. Do you want me to go on that one?
Go ahead.
Okay. So garbage in, garbage out is not a new concept in the world of computing. So even your generative AI platforms that are public facing they use the data that's been supplied to them through users. They can also scour the internet and just capture anything. So keep in mind, I can make a website that says anything I want it to, right? And if someone asks a question about that topic, my website might be the one that gets found and you get that answer. So, if you think the sky is orange and my website's the one that it gets that answer from, that might be your answer that day. So it's not always going to be right. So you want to be very careful of what you're trusting from AI platforms and understanding where is it getting its data, where is it getting its information. And that's probably the number one thing to keep in mind of, especially when using public platforms. The more private ones that are using commercial data that you feed it are generally going to give you cleaner and better information than just publicly facing ones that have everything that anybody's ever fed it, depending on what you're looking for.
Yeah, and I'll throw in a little bit more there on the be careful what you ask of AI. So Gran Turismo 7, and there's an esports panel coming up later. They have an AI bot called Sophia, and when they were starting to train that bot, they gave it an incentive for passes, right? So the more passes you had, the more points you were going to get. Well, the bot decided, okay, I'm going to pass and then allow myself to be overtaken so that I can repass again. Right, and so it was sort of gaming its own system based on the incentive that was created for it. So there's a good example of making sure we're managing the incentives, and the word guardrails was used earlier, and I'll touch on that one here in a little bit. But making sure that what we're asking of machines is given the right context, right?
Question over here.
So you mentioned the data lake and pulling everything together, and I think that's really cool in theory, but I've seen in practice it's really hard to actually get all the data, say from your Facebook pixel and your analytics account, and every time I hear that conversation, it sounds theoretical, and I've never seen anybody actually be able to do it without spending $30,000 a month on a Salesforce thing that doesn't work either. Can you give some examples of how have you actually done that? How do you actually get the data to talk to each other? Because we run into problems, for example, when it's hey, what if we want to text everybody that came to the event that didn't do a chargeback, that didn't buy this type of ticket, that also bought that, and it's 4 hours of pivot tables to actually find that list. Have you actually been able to pull it into one place? And can you give a few examples beyond just theoretical, hey, let's have it all in one place, of times you actually utilized it, having it all in one place?
So that's where I would say your provider selection is important. So when you're working with the Facebooks and the Googles and whoever else in the world, they're going to give you as much data as is convenient for them. So they're going to want to keep you on their platforms. They're going to want to keep you guessing. They're going to want to keep you paying. So when you're using some of these third-party tools, it can be extraordinarily difficult to mass export meaningful data from those. And I don't have a magical answer to that particular item, but when you're buying, ticketing systems, or you're buying marketing systems, or you're buying other types of systems like that, I think that's an important question to ask of the provider is, what is your data management policy? How much of this can I get access to? And if I want to export this and build a data lake, will you work with me on that? And I think that's more of an important question of, what systems you're using and the vendors that you're using, than it is having a magical way to do all of that. Because with some system, there's just not. And some of them will only give you very limited information.
Yeah, and I think the most practical example is around ticketing and checkout in cart processes, right? And this spans industries, not just specific to the racing industry, right? A lot of businesses are out there trying to figure out how to convert once someone puts something into a cart. How do you get them to buy? And the reminders and the follow-ons, right? That's probably the most direct example of actually being able to use logic-based AI. But to the point I was trying to make earlier, that sort of rules-based engine and those criteria that you were putting forward, right? That's still in that sort of dumb or weak AI category, right? You're not asking the system, hey, how many of my customers tried to buy from me last week and couldn't, and then it actually being able to give you a reasonable answer. That we're just not quite there yet. We're really on that initial curve, and a lot of it is buzzwordy and a lot of it is bullshit, right? It's truly not at a point where this is why the consultants are being brought in by the big boxes, right? Because nobody has actually figured out how to make practical use of some of that more advanced AI beyond the sort of the chatbot implementation. Another good example is self-driving cars, right? So the idea being, okay, I know within the last 30 seconds, there have been a ton of inputs, right? All the camera systems and the sensors, the accelerometers, all those pieces of information are driving towards making an immediate decision, but it can't store the last 5 days worth of data at that level of specificity, right? It might be able to pipe it back to the cloud, but you can't install a server rack inside of a vehicle that's going to be able to house that amount of data, right? So there are some implementations of sort of AI in point solutions and ticketing and checkout and purchasing process is probably the most relevant because it drives the bottom line most directly. But you know, the self-driving cars and autonomous driving are certainly another example.
How long do you think it is before there is something where you can say, hey, how many of my customers did buy last week? Like, do you think we're like two, you know, if you're Elon Musk for a second, do you think we're 2 years out from that, 5 years out? You know, what's your timeline?
My bold prediction is 3 years or less.
Yeah, I agree with that generally, at least around that first set of questions, right? But we've been saying we're going to have flying cars for the last 20 years for the last how many years, right? So it is going to be a little bit of a slower roll, but thinking about it now and sort of wrapping your head around what data is important to me and what questions do I want to be able to answer for myself and for my stakeholders, that is absolutely where your head should be at right now.
Yeah, the Jetsons made me promises when I was a kid. I'm still having issues with that. All right, here's my toss-up question to both of you, and I'm not even sure if there really is an answer for this one. Best kind of questions to ask. It seems to me while we're in a rush to accept AI and get better at using it, I have a feeling big bad government regulations are coming even more so down the road when it comes to AI. Are we going to see a lot of government regulations, and should that be a reason for us to proceed a little slower?
So there's definitely a social concern around the elimination of jobs or automation of jobs, which frankly is nothing new. I mean, that's what technology's been doing in every facet for a very long time, whether it's traditional IT or whether it's manufacturing technology and all of that. So I think some of those concerns are maybe made by a more vocal few that have constituents in certain areas that are more sensitive to that. So your old school manufacturing towns, things like that have really suffered from job losses and eliminations might be more sensitive to that. I'm not sure how much merit there is to AI is going to put all of us out of work. I don't give that line of thinking a lot of credibility with that. But I will say the concern that I see, there's currently some cases being tied up in the court system around intellectual property that's generated from AI, and this kind of touches on the Sports Illustrated thing a little bit too. But thus far, in the cases that I've been trying to follow and watch, it's been determined that you cannot assume intellectual property rights from anything that's AI generated. So if you go to an AI platform and say, hey, make me a logo that looks like this, well, guess what? You can't trademark that, copyright it, anything. It's not a human-generated thing. Nobody can file for it. And the same thing may go for your content. If you want to be able to copyright your content, you may have issues with that if it was AI generated. So that's definitely a regulatory problem that is in the court system right now, and who knows how that'll shake out.
Yeah, there's a lot of fear, uncertainty, and doubt about AI right now. And if you followed Sam Altman and you know what they've got going on around OpenAI, and you know basically even we'll come back to the question about regulation in just a second because I think there is a really applicable use case there. But when the capitalists in the room say, "Whoa, wait a minute, I'm a little bit scared of what this thing can do," that should be a signaling factor for the rest of society, right? So. Put that to the side for a second. In terms of actual regulation relating to AI, I think autonomous vehicles and self-driving cars are certainly going to be an area that we start to see government intervention around. The truth is, though, in a lot of ways, the same thing that was talked about in the EVs, where there's a lot of sort of fear mongering around EVs and the fires and those things, when in reality, gasoline vehicles are a large majority of the actual fires that come up, is the same thing with wrecks, right? With crashes. The reality is humans are fallible, and trying to improve human efficiency has been at the core of at least capitalism and I think the drive for progress for a long time. And machines can make us safer. They've made us safer already, right? Think about your braking system in your personal vehicle, let alone GM. They actually bought a company called PRI Show that was meant to improve pit stop times. So they bought that company based on AI input around all of the sort of signaling factors of when to pit, right? And that was in September of last year. So the technology is coming along, but certainly there are going to be eyeballs on it, especially if it starts being applied to the consumer space and seeing, cars without humans at the wheel.
Dennis, I don't know if this will help others, but when I personally got into the AI, and it's a rabbit hole, isn't it? Like you start like Googling it and going down, it's a rabbit hole you can go down. It reminds me of business intelligence, right? That was a buzzword in corporate America where we need to get our business intelligence, garbage in, garbage out. It seems remnants of that, but I guess my question is, if you use AI right now in your business, could you raise your hand? I know I asked that earlier. Who uses it now? Would one of you be willing to share how you use it specifically? A couple of you? Because I'm curious, just a use case on this. Oh, Brian, there you go.
Okay, I was going to say David Vaughn using AI. I like it. My name is Brian Giddinelli. I run motorsportreg.com. There are a lot of futuristic sounding things that we can do, but if you have a $20 a month ChatGPT account, I'll just give you 3 examples that we use that for. My team uses that for every day. One is survey analysis. So I piped in 5,000 responses from a qualitative survey into ChatGPT, and I asked it to summarize the themes and give me 10 examples of each theme for me to analyze. It did it in 30 seconds. That would have taken me hours in Excel all day long trying to put those themes together. We use it I use it to cheat for writing Excel formulas when I don't know what the actual formula should be in Excel. So I'll ask it to figure it out for me, and it does. That's great. And then our software developers are using it to write 40% of boilerplate code. So it doesn't write the whole thing for them, but they say, I want a function that does X, Y, and Z, and it will give back the starting point that saves them about 40% of their time. So I think the way that I would think about AI right now for everyone here is in the short term, it is just like a super-powered assistant for you. And the term that you'll want to look up and get familiar with is called prompt engineering. And that's basically how do you write the prompt for something like a ChatGPT to give you back good feedback, because the way you ask actually matters quite a bit. But just on a daily basis, I'm using it every day for basically to accelerate my daily tasks.
Yeah, there's a saying that's basically to the point that AI is going to take all our jobs. Well, maybe someday, but in the nearish future, it's more likely that someone using AI is going to take your job, right? And I think that's exactly what you're describing.
We got one.
Jess Hewitt with Hyperfuels. If I could second what Trey said, we had very inconsistent result in our customer service department, and we had a man bot on our web page. We replaced that with chatbot. Remarkable. Those inconsistencies disappeared immediately. But the big benefit that we got that I wasn't expecting, our customers were asking us questions in their language. It was converting the answers into their language. Russian, Hindi, French, all these languages were no problem for the bot. My staff would have been problematic with that sort of thing, but we've used it for that. We've used it in creating technical documents for different audiences, and we use it for the ABC testing for our advertising. Thank you.
Thanks for adding that, or for sharing that.
Well, and there's a struggle that's going on right now, and you might have experienced it. Whether has anybody not wanted to move to the cloud, right? As in not wanting to put their data in the cloud of their business, right? Maybe had some servers, yeah. So at my last big organization, is a company called Genesis Customer Experience Platform. We had a big customer, Kohl's, and Kohl's did not want to give Amazon, AWS, any of their data because they considered them a very direct competitor, right? So data ownership is always in conflict with the idea of the ease of use, right? And we've finally sort of found a point with cloud computing at the sort of general business space where you can be comfortable using the cloud, but your level of comfort using AI is still on that sort of burgeoning level that you're going to have to evaluate for your business and what you think is important. I mean, luckily, I think this audience, there's not a lot of necessarily proprietary data. I might be wrong on that. Somebody feel free to correct me, right? But obviously your customer data is important to you, but you're not dealing with a lot of direct like HIPAA or personal information beyond, a standard business practice. So
I think this was tagging on to, I raised my hand, of examples of how we use it. So we're a systems integrator. We do ticketing, registration, live stream, Torque Hub. But I think there's two buckets of data around analysis of your business unit, as we talked about customers and that piece of the puzzle. At the end of the day, that's going to be some systems integrations like Trackside or some of those folks that are actually using the technology to deliver that. But I think from an everyday, tagging on to the digital marketing piece, use ChatGPT to go and figure out, if you give it its role and tell it's an expert marketer, and then ask it to build out your campaign, there's going to be a litany of things that can come from that, of building out strategies and campaigns. How do you attach to new audiences? And in the paid subscription, you can build your own GPT, which is your own version of your bot, which you can load to your own brand stories, the way you talk about your brand, the events that you have. So that bot then, every time you interact with it, has that as its own knowledge base. So it's bridging the gap between what large corporations can build out their own AIs to be able to build out your own kind of micro AI. But I would say for everybody in the room, the marketing approach and strategies and building content and helping from that standpoint is a super easy win.
Very good point indeed. Just like all of our subjects, this is such a broad topic. We could go in a bunch of different ways. And if you're like me, at 2 a.m, you're going to wake up with a question for these gentlemen. So feel free to fire that off to them. But we got to wrap things up. Trey, a final word.
yeah, absolutely. I want to come back to something I said earlier, and it's just an interesting little story. It's called it's about the guardrails that we put in place. There is a concept in AI called the paperclip problem, which surmises that if we create AI to generate something, menial, like let's create the most paperclips as efficiently as possible, and we forget to tell the AI that what it can and can't do to accomplish that task, that it might decide, for whatever reason, that humans are the best input for actually creating paperclips and, therefore murder us all. Not with any sort of Terminator must kill all humans intent, but certainly there is thought leadership going into how we make sure that AI retains the human part of us that keeps us all living and rotating the sun every 365 days. So please take it from up here back down to here. Come get a free headshot because it's super cool and you'll like it. And I promise you'll get the result very, very quickly.
Very cool. All right, Jason, bring us home.
So I would just encourage you to think of your data as one of your most valuable business assets and collect as much of it as you can. Doing that will set you up for future success no matter what direction you go with AI or what direction you don't go with AI. But I encourage everyone to think of that. That's something that's very much lacking in the motorsports world that I see. And you've got a flyer at every seat here. We're hosting a digital transformation session tomorrow that I invite all of you to attend. If you can RSVP, we appreciate it. If you just show up, that's okay too. But it helps us know how many people to expect. But there we'll talk about more of these types of more data management concepts and bringing digitization into motorsports. But I think with AI, the virtual assistant view is probably the most way to actually operationalize it today. And until more, clear-cut solutions emerge, keep collecting data and keep watching for the next opportunity to use it.
What did we learn from this panel? We learned that data is power, and AI can help simplify the task of analyzing data, but be careful what you ask AI to do and set up those guardrails so you make sure it doesn't go off the beaten path. There are great tools out there that are putting AI to work for you in a very practical way. PopCam can not only give your brand a consistent look, which is important. Imagine all of your people at the track, including your drivers, crew chiefs, all having a shot that has consistent imaging. That's powerful. And it can also generate a new revenue stream for you, which is a very key part of that success. And trackside systems, well, they can take a lot of issues off your to-do list for you and simplify things. Let's give these gentlemen an applause.